learning. You never stop. And we want to be a community of learners. So I happen to be very fortunate. I'm going to talk to you more about graduate education in my new position as Dean of the Graduate School of the University of Rhode Island. I started, doing more and more, learning more and more about data on graduate education and in this country. And what is really actually happening in this country is actually undergoing a huge, big transition in education, in college education. It's as big as the transition happened during the Civil War in the 1860s when land-grant institutions were formed. Right now, this country is facing incredible competition from Southeast Asia, from China, from India, and it's really the biggest risk it has ever faced in its history. This country is facing a risk because its excellence is its power, not in its weapons, but it's in its education, in its knowledge. And graduate education is a strategic asset for the United States. This is what keeps the United States to be the leading power, the most powerful nation. Within just 10 years, by 2020, this country, 50% of the high school graduates are going to come from minority populations. It's a huge, big demographic change. And by 2050, the white majority now is going to become a white minority. And what's happening around the world is that the Europeans, the Asians, the Indians, the Chinese, the Koreans, the Japanese are rising very much to the top through education. And this is what I'm going to emphasize to you more and more about, through education. So this country is reassessing its educational system, how to maintain itself, and how to survive. And I'm going to give you some data, because we're going to be living in this country. And we're going to be competing in a knowledge-based, economy and society. If you're working in manufacturing, the U.S. is not going to lead the world in manufacturing. They can make it in China for 1/10, the cost. So if you immigrated here and you are working in companies and factories, that's going to change. Your children are not going to have that same opportunity. If you want to focus on what Emma said, micro, and just have my store, and and that's it, you're going to be very limited. So our communities actually have been hurt a lot by the economic downfall that has happened last year, and you know that in Michigan firsthand. The only way to bridge that and to come back for the U.S. is to regain its leadership in education, particularly in graduate education. So I'm going to give you some more data, and we had a synopsis of some data from Richmond, New York. I don't know how small, the small sample size, but to give us an idea of, 50 families. But this will give us an idea about the United States. So this is firm information, firm data, statistics collected by the Council of Graduate Schools for the whole United States. If you look on this graph here, all graduates, that is who goes to college, those who enter two-year colleges versus those who go for a bachelor's degree. 19% of high school graduates end up going to a two-year college. A very small number. 38% go to earn a bachelor's degree. So over 60% of those who finish high school don't end up going to college. This is national data, national statistics for the United States. This is data from this year. It's the most up-to-date data. Then look what other communities and what other races are doing and what we should be doing. Otherwise, we're going to fall further and further and further behind. We're going to drop to the bottom. If you look among Asians, 61% of them are getting bachelor's degrees. And if you look among whites, 42%. The highest one is Asians. This is why they are very successful here, and this is why they're successful in Korea and in Japan and in China. And then if you look at black, it's 31%, and the Hispanic community is about, I can't see it from here, but maybe 24%. And so that's the percentages of different racial categories seeking a bachelor's degree. These are the trends. I've given you these trends. Where do we fall here? I'm not sure. We need numbers. We need data. But I can't tell you, from the numbers we saw from New York, I think we're in bad shape. change that, we're going to be in worse and worse shape. Next slide. Then this shows you the highest degree attained in 2003 by those who finished college in 1993, after 10 years, because it takes a long time to get a graduate degree. The majority have, a bachelor's degree, but out of those that finish a bachelor's degree, only 2% end up to get a doctoral degree. So congratulations to those of you in graduate programs. You are among the 2%. And I'm happy, inshallah, you'll make it soon to that, 2%. And about 4% are getting professional degrees. Professional means pharmacy, medicine, law, MBA. And 28% are getting master's degree. So about 25 or 27% are getting higher, degrees. Why are we having this conversation? We're having this conversation because you need to realize, as you plan for your children in the future, that a bachelor's degree is no longer the entry point to a good, lucrative job. You're going to be at the bottom if all your goal is just bachelor's degree, and if that's all you encourage your children, they're not going to be at the top, in that curve that the brother just showed us. Next, please. Now, let's look at high school. High school sophomores that have, what is their aspirations? We need to have our children aspire to become something. We need to give them expectations, as Anissa said, higher expectations they should shoot for. Among whites who are in sophomores in high school, 41% of them are already thinking of graduate degrees, master's and PhD. That's almost close to half. And the other 40% want to get a bachelor's degree. That number becomes smaller when you look at black and Hispanics, only 30%. But look at that among Asians. 50% of them are already thinking of graduate and professional degrees. And the other 37% are going to get a bachelor's degree. That's going to be a highly educated community. And a highly educated community means a well-to-do community, a more stable community, a more influential community, a more powerful community. So this is what it is about. The future is about knowledge and education, and we need to prepare for that future. Next. Now look at this. This looks at degrees conferred in 1969 to 2006 as percent of the population. Young people between 25 years of age and 35 years of age. And I don't have, a pointer. This is something we were missing at the conference. But you can look at the bottom for PhD, the two lines. There's a broken line and there's a faint line. Early in the 1970s, there were more men getting doctorates, and very few women were doing that. And you can see how it rises now by today. There is actually as many women as there are men. Thank you very much. See these two lines? This was where women were, and now they rise up, while men actually have dropped over time. You can see how that happens. And then look at master's degrees. There is a big increase in master's degrees among females. So whatever trends you're talking about, and some of you and the principal was mentioning about women making gains in education, it's not just the MNU community. It is throughout all communities. The biggest change that has happened is that women have entered the workforce, have achieved and gotten education, and they actually excel. In my university, the majority of students are women in the undergraduate, and the majority of students in the graduate degrees are also women. So this is a trend that is present in all communities. Next, please. This is reasons for leaving graduate school. I'm going to skip that, why people do not stay in graduate school. Next, please. Now, this is what is a big change, and this is why the United States is really worrying. And this is showing you the trends that are happening around the world. Where do international students go to get a higher education? In the year 2000, 25% of them came to the U.S. Okay? And now we know September 11 happened and so on, but in 2006 that number has dropped. I can't see it from here, but I think 20%. It's a huge, significant amount of drop. the number of students that come to this country. And where are the gains? The gains are in, well, European countries is a small gain, it's about 1%, because they actually what they did with the EU, they united all their countries' educational system, and they produced standard, graduates called the standard format for their master's, PhD, so you can go from country to country, and they're the biggest threat to the United States graduate education. Because the United States has led the world #1 in graduate education. That's where discoveries happen, where innovation happens, where great ideas happen like Yahoo and Google, and all of that comes from graduate school, from graduate students, from ideas, from research, from science that happens in schools. When a country starts dropping in knowledge, education, and research, it also drops in productivity, it drops in creativeness, it drops in a number of things and becomes gradually weaker and weaker. There's a big gain also for the Chinese and the Indians and others who have gained that. So the United States right now is in a position where it's not attracting the best and the brightest from the rest of the world to come and do their graduate PhD and master's degrees in this country. And that position is no longer the leading position, which means, they have to make up for that difference from domestic students. You have to get interested in going to graduate school to make up for that difference. Because a lot of the research programs and a lot of the activity in research and science, engineering is handled by foreign students that come to this country. Next, please. And this shows you in terms of numbers how many students actually come to this country. 256 in 2002. Then it dropped after September 11, and now they've become they're coming back again. This is 2006. But after 300,000 students come to this country. Can you imagine what the economic impact of that? And I know you guys are good in math. If you multiply 300,000 by maybe each student spending 50,000, 30 to 50,000 a year going to school in this country, that's billions and billions and billions of dollars. And so education is a very, very big contributor to the economy in this country. And next, please. Might probably be my last one. And this is another story that's changing, but used to benefit this country. Those who come here to do their graduate degrees, most of them, they end up staying in this country. This has been the big edge for this country, is that it always brain drained. It got the brightest from other countries. They came here, they go to school, they stay, and they support the economy of this country. This is happening less and less. Few are wanting to come here, and more greater institutions are coming up in China, in South Korea, in Japan, in India, and others that is changing these trends. And next, please. It takes a long time to do a graduate degree. I don't want to get you discouraged, but I want you to be aware that it can take, after high school, finishing your bachelor's, and then going to a graduate degree can take you 5 years, 7 years, and up to 10 years. It's lifelong learning, but it's an investment. You will see that curve really go up if you dedicate yourself to this. And we come from a community, our heritage, our faith, really prepares us to think of knowledge and learning. And if we don't become that type of community, we're going to be the ones who are going to be the janitors cleaning up, people's stores and cooking and painting and cutting the grass. And they're going to have the education, and they're going to have the best jobs, and they're going to have the vacations, and they're going to have all the benefits. And we don't want to be that. We want to be among the best communities in the U.S. Next, please. And I'm going to stop there. I thought I'll give you some data so you have an idea what's happening in graduate education. So we're thinking all the way the spectrum from elementary to PhD. We need to think that way. And I'm going to stop there, and actually my pleasure is to introduce the next person who will follow me is Jihad. Jihad is my graduate student. He's doing a PhD in my lab. I happen to be a very fortunate Yemeni. I have an undergraduate doing summer research with me this summer. Then I have a graduate PhD Yemeni doing, his PhD with me, which is Jihad. And I also have a Yemeni postdoc doing research in my lab. So I'm very, very fortunate to be surrounded by the smartest Yemenis. Assalamu alaikum.